When I got out of college, like a lot of you, I majored in finance and I went to work on the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. I worked there, started out as a market reporter, worked to become what you call an ARB clerk. I would have been one of the guys, if you look in the pictures out here, I would have been one of the guys standing on the outside of the pit doing all the hand signals and stuff like that. It was actually a really very interesting way to start my career. It was one of the more interesting places I've ever worked, open outcry, price discovery, how all that worked, learning about that. I learned a lot about trading, how the floor works. So I had a lot of fun doing it too. I did that for about 3 years, and I had so much fun that I decided to go and pursue a career in accounting, a little bit of a career change for me. So I did that. I actually became a CPA, went into public accounting, did that for a while. Then I went into corporate America and really worked in internal audit for the next 10 plus years. But one day I heard about an opportunity to get back into the markets. I heard about an opportunity at NFA, and I thought, having started my career working on the floor of the Mercantile Exchange, it was something that right away appealed to me that I thought would be interesting and worth looking at. So I took a job with NFA as a compliance manager. So when I was thinking about that process, do I want to join NFA, I was probably asking myself a question similar to what a lot of you here today are asking yourselves. What is NFA? What does NFA do? So what we're a self-regulatory organization in the futures industry. Really what that means is we're trying to ensure market integrity. We're trying to make sure that investors are protected, that they're not, their money's not stolen, and we're trying to make sure that our members are, doing the right things, that they're following the rules and meeting their responsibilities. So we're a member organization. If you want to be in the futures industry, you have to join NFA. Really, if you want to take other people's money and trade that on any of the futures exchanges, you're going to have to be a member. We have about 4,000 member firms. And they're very actively involved in how we operate, setting our rules. They're on our committees, our executive committee and such. So that's kind of a little bit of the high level of what NFA is. A little more of the nuts and bolts of what we do, and might be a little more applicable to what you would do, in terms of if you chose a career in compliance. What we do is we have a lot of people back at NFA. What we do, we get a lot of data. Let me start there. So we get a lot of market data, we get a lot of member firm data, and we try to take that data and we have a lot of smart people back at NFA who try to analyze it and really figure out what are the characteristics of those firms that are the higher risk, or what they often call the bad actors in the industry. And we really, there's a lot of firms out there that do the right things. We don't really want to focus on them. We're really trying to identify those characteristics of firms that are putting investors at risk, or putting the markets at risk, may cause the markets to act inefficiently. So that's what we do, and when we do identify those firms that are exhibiting those characteristics, we then go and do examinations. That's what I have teams that go in the field, and we'll go and we'll take a look at those firms. We'll try to understand their operations. How do they trade? What are the products they trade? And then we'll try to test it. We'll test compliance. We'll test those operations to make sure that they're following the rules. They're not putting investors at risk. And when we do our examinations of firms, if we do find that there are what we call material violations, we might take what we call disciplinary action against the firm, and that's something that we go through kind of an internal process, and that could result in the firm being fined, suspended. They could even be barred from the industry. So that's kind of a quick explanation as to what NFA is. In terms of a career in compliance, as I was thinking about this, and what I would say why a career in compliance could be interesting, I think a lot of the things that make it interesting, you already heard some of the topics that come up that we discuss. We talk about Bitcoin internally. The markets are changing a lot. When I started out on the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and as I look at the CBOE floor, they're very different than they were 20 years ago. They're going to be very different 20 years from now. When some of you in the audience get the opportunity someday to come up here and talk about what the markets look like, you'll sound a lot like us in terms of, I talk kind of longingly about, our clerks and doing all that hand signal stuff. Well, nobody's really going to know what the heck you're talking about. That'll be long gone by then. And there'll be something completely new that, you'll talk about longingly that you got the chance to do that nobody does anymore. Point being, the markets are changing. That keeps things very interesting in compliance. We have to stay on top of things as they change. And then, it's things like Bitcoin, high-frequency traders, high-frequency trading. As those things come up, as a regulator, we have to think about how that fits in our regulatory structure. where do we fit in that, and how do we want to regulate that product, if we even have a role there. So we have a lot of discussions about the markets and how the markets are changing, and we try to stay on top of that so that we understand those things, and we try to see what's coming down the road. That keeps things on a daily basis very interesting. As I go into firms, there are a lot of really smart people in firms in this industry doing a lot of really interesting things, and I get the chance to look at that and try to understand it, and that keeps me going. The other thing that makes this industry interesting on a daily basis, I think, is technology's changing. High frequency trading, that's obviously something that's everybody's heard of today. Back when I was working on the floor of the exchange, the idea of the markets traded as fast as I could quote the market to somebody. That was high frequency trading back then. Now today that takes on quite a different, it has a much different definition. But as technology changes, the risks change in our industry. The markets change. We have electronic markets now. There are a lot of different products being traded. But also, from a regulator standpoint, the technology has put information at risk. That's something we look at a lot. We have 4,000 member firms, and they have a lot of investor data. They have a lot of market data, and we want to make sure our member firms are doing the right things to keep that data secure. That's something that we're putting a lot of effort into right now. And also as a regulator, when we look at that, if you're regulating a market and you're requiring firms to do all kinds of stuff to keep data safe and secure, you don't want to, we look at ourselves and say, are we doing the same things? Are we doing the right things to keep our data secure? We have a lot of market and member data that we want to protect. So that's something that gets a lot of attention right now. Another change going on in the industry is it's becoming much more international. We have member firms all over the country. One of the things we're doing is we're sending people to London. We have teams going over there to conduct examinations. And we're starting to look at more firms and starting to think about doing more examinations internationally, going to Asia, possibly looking at more countries in Europe. And that presents challenges because in the United States, we're a regulatory body. Everybody knows who we are. We know how that works. But when you want to go into another country, they have their own laws and regulations. And you have to figure out how to work within that structure. So that's something that's causing a lot of change at NFA. So those are some of the things that I think make compliance interesting. What would a career path at NFA look like? The way it works is we have a strong internship program. We hire interns all the time. I get to work with them. I have them on my team. I think they're very important. They bring a lot of energy, a lot of good ideas. So hopefully, some of you will someday be interns at NFA after you're really enthused about compliance after this. But if you do, the way it works when you come on as an intern or any new hire, because we do hire a lot of people right out of college too. What we do is we have a very, there's a lot you have to learn, is what I would put it. You have to learn about the markets, you have to learn the regulatory environment, and you have to learn about kind of how NFA functions. How do we do examinations? What are our internal processes? So how do we do that? We have a very aggressive training program. It lasts about 3 weeks. All our new hires go through it. We teach you about all that. We try to give you, we try to build up your knowledge base and teach you all the things you need to know to be a successful examiner with us. And you'll learn a lot about the markets. We teach you about futures, options. We go into all that because those are things you're going to need to know about as you go into firms and look at their operations. And then once you do that and you kind of know a little bit about what you're doing, we'll throw you in the field. We'll put you on exams, and you'll go out and you'll start interacting with firms. You'll be assigned things to do. You'll have to do testing. You'll interact with CEOs, CFOs, CCOs right away. You'll get the chance to sit down in front of them, ask them questions about their operations, what they do. You'll do that for a while, and then right when you think you kind of know what you're doing, we kind of put you through some more training, and you kind of learn a little more technical and some of the harder stuff. And once you know that, we'll put you back in the field and you'll do some more testing. So we put a lot of effort into trying to train you and teach you the things you need to know to be a successful examiner at NFA. So that's kind of how a career would work at the beginning. And then as you develop in your career, there's really, we have a lot of different groups. I'm in compliance, so that's kind of what I tend to focus on more and what we do. We have a market regulation group, we have swaps. So there's a lot going on in terms of a career path. A lot of different things to do as I look around. I've been there for 4 years. Looking at myself, thinking, what is my next step? What do I want to do? I've seen people who come in as a compliance examiner, and they work their way right up the chain as a compliance examiner, and they've been there for 20 years. I've also seen people who've come into the NFA and been there for a long time, who started out as a compliance examiner and doing something completely different. So hopefully the career path there is pretty well thought out. There's a lot of options, a lot of different things you can do. I think that's hopefully that gives you some ideas to what a career in compliance looks like. I think it's an exciting opportunity. There's a lot to learn. Thank you for having me here today. I'll be around for a while, so if any of you have any questions, please feel free. Thank you.